Hi and good morning. It is December the 6th already. And gosh, here we are. This year's basically over with. And, we do have a lot to be thankful for, guys. In spite of whatever we might be going through at whatever level we are. There's people out there that have lost their jobs, people that have lost their homes, and of course we're dealing with our nation where we have lost our freedoms. And as I consider all of this, and the last 2 days have been extremely frustrating for me. I met with our two new county commissioners yesterday, Mr. Jeff Gold and Miss Michelle Stone, and I am dismayed that, for one thing, neither of them even know the Constitution. So they took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, and they don't even know what the Constitution says. Who in their right mind would swear an oath to do something when you're not even sure? As a matter of fact, in speaking with Mr. Jeff Gold, we and I, there were two witnesses to these meetings. My wife and Jeremy were in these meetings, and so this was a good thing, because first of all, we asked them about audio video recording this. And the lawyer was brought in and said, "No, you can't do this." And I said, "Well, show me the law." And he said, "Well, there is no law." Well, wait a minute. If there's no law that states that we're not allowed to audio or video record these meetings, then where do they get us the right to tell us that we can't do this? And of course, if we would have done it, then they would have just said, "Well, we're not going to meet with you." Which maybe we should have went that route, because then we would have had another legal means of coming after these people. But guys, who accepts a job knowing that you're going to be a public servant, knowing that within this position you're going to be required to swear an oath to something, and not even know what that something entails or involves? Who in their right mind does that? And what in the world is their motivation for even becoming a county council member? And that was not a question that I presented before them, but it's one that I will present before them. Because if their motivation is not to protect and defend the Constitution, what in the hell is it? It can only be their own personal agenda. And when I realize what's going on here, it's extremely frustrating on many levels. And let me say this: if a person is hungry, let's say you're hungry, and you don't go and do something to relieve your hunger. Make a sandwich, or if you have no food, to go gain food, whether you have to hunt or fish or trap or whatever, to relieve your hunger situation. Nobody's going to do it for you. And we have kind of the same situation here in our deprivation of rights and liberties, and the fact that these people are stomping all over the Constitution. And look, we can't reach the federal government level. We just can't. But you can reach the local government level, and you can do something about it. The problem is nobody will. You people are all either afraid, or you're so wrapped up in your own lives that you don't even realize that what you're really allowing to happen is for your children and your children's children to become impacted in this, because you fail to do nothing. You're doing nothing in your local community to right the wrongs that are occurring. Well, what can I do? Well, what can you do? You'll get involved. You let them know that I have a voice in government and I will be heard. And even if it's your voice, listen, Isaiah and John the Baptist, a voice of one crying in the wilderness, and yet their voices were very loud and they were heard. Guys, to stand back and say, well, there's nothing I can do, quite frankly, is bullshit. It is a coward's way out. And thank God that our founders of this nation were not cowards. They were not afraid to stand up to a tyrannical king and a tyrannical government and say, we will take this no more. And they fought and they died for what was right. And for people to sit back on the coattails of those who have gone before us and shed their blood and now allow this out of control tyrannical government to do whatever the hell they want to in your community, in your backyard where you live, and you let them, without as much as even confronting them and saying, where do you get your authority? Where do you get your right to do what you're doing? Show me the documentation. Because they don't have it. Listen, when we get so wrapped up in self that we forget that we have a responsibility to others who can't fight for themselves. And this is not just listen, this is right versus wrong. It is not just a religious battle, because I know that there are people out there who are patriots who are not necessarily believers in the Bible. And yet they know the difference between doing right and wrong. And I will make a distinction there. They are patriots who stand up for natural law, and even though they don't call it what it is, rights granted by the Creator, they understand it as natural law. They just don't get it that actually goes back to biblical truth. But they're on the same side as we are when it comes to the fact that these few people deprive us of the very rights that God gave us. And for people to stand back and woe is me, and I'm tired of this and tired of that, and you do nothing, you are a part of the problem. And not a part of the solution. Because believe it or not, when the people gather together and they make a quorum and they muster together and they go marching into City Hall, let me tell you something. Those 4, 5, 6 people, they will take notice. And I'll tell you right now, they'll be scared to death. We have a legal system and a court of law that works great. Now listen, have the judges corrupted our system? Yes. The system is fine. It's the people that are corrupted. We hold their feet to the fire as a group. And until we get to this point where we gather this quorum and this group of people, and let me tell you something, there is a quorum building in Marion County, Florida. I am not alone in this. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not alone. There are, and what's funny is after the meeting today, there was a group of 3 of us who actually had a post-meeting, and we found it interesting that all 3 of us in what we're doing is the same thing, only differently. Does that make sense? In other words, I bring up one aspect of this, another group brings up a different aspect, and another group brings up a different aspect, but we're all fighting for the same thing, and that is liberty and justice for all. Because that is not what we have today, ladies and gentlemen. And until you get to the point where you stand up and say, this will occur no more in my backyard, and get your neighbors involved and their neighbors involved, and look, if you can't all make it to the meeting, no big deal. Get a petition going, sign a petition, get it notarized, and you hand it to the clerk of courts at the meeting. Get one spokesman who says, I am speaking for the people in my community who cannot be here. They all agree with what I'm about to say. You are a bunch of scumbags that are depriving us of our rights, our due process, our justice system, and we are taking note of what you're doing, and we're putting you on notice that if you continue this act, we will go to the next level. It's as simple as that. But until the American people stand up and stop with this nonsense of what can we do, oh poor pitiful us. Listen, I've used this time and time again. We walk around like we've got a busted flush when we've got 5 aces. And we have 5 aces because of the way the founders wrote the documents. And if you have any questions about that, you can always contact me or leave a question on this YouTube video, and I will be more than happy to help you. To listen, we have a lot of documentation that we can share with people to get you started in your local community to take back what rightfully belongs to we the people. The county doesn't own crap. It belongs to the people. The government doesn't own crap. It belongs to the people. They have duped us into believing that this system that they have set up is the true system of how it's supposed to be, and it's not. Let me remind you once again, Article 6 of the Constitution says it is the supreme law of the land. And anything that contradicts the Constitution, and the Supreme Court has ruled on this so many times, any law, statute, regulation, whatever that violates the Constitution, you can ignore it. The Supreme Court has ruled in the favor of the people. I hope this video gets out there, and I hope people listen to it, and I hope you get as pissed off as I am that your rights are being deprived. And if you want to know how, just ask me. I'll give you proof, documentation. Just comment on this video. Have a good day. Fight the good fight. Because it's never wrong to do what is right. Never. Have a good day.